Most of it.
You are live and ready to go whenever you're ready.
All that. Got a couple
Right.
minutes yet.
Chris has arrived. Did you have a nice Mother's Day yesterday,
It
Dad?
was fine.
It was good for her, I'm sure.
Went to my sister's.
That's nice.
The weather was beautiful.
Oh, we couldn't have had a better day.
We were outside almost the whole time.
That's terrific.
Full house tonight except Tom. Here, everybody's here, almost. Almost. Good evening, sir. Hey, Mark.
Mark, how you doing?
Greetings.
Sam?
Call the meeting of the May 12th City of Washington Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Roll call.
Rocco Gonzalez,
Here.
Mark Kleesner,
Here.
Mark Piontek,
Here.
Tom Holdmeyer, Peter Hagedorn,
Here.
John Borgman,
Here.
Chuck Watson,
Here.
Chad Briggs,
Here.
Carolyn Witt,
Here.
Mike Wood,
Here.
Sarah Skeen.
Here.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 14th meeting. I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Second?
Motion made by Mike, second by Carolyn, that we approve the minutes of the April 14th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 3, file number 25-0501, preliminary plat, Poppy's Place, 5415 and 5475 Highway 100. Sarah?
Yeah, it's good evening. This came to me in early April. We've gone through a lot of conversation about this preliminary plat for Poppy's Place. As you can see, it looks like there's 3 lots there. The understanding was that it was 3 lots because there was a kind of like a taking by MoDOT that dissected that lot, but in fact, it's still deeded as 1 lot. And they are wanting to sell out that section that says Lot 1 there. There's actually a business there, Accessories Unlimited, has been there for a long time. I think 2001, if I'm correct from my report, they had built that and have been running a business there before it became city, within the city limits. So they are now wanting to turn that over and sell that, so we have to go through this process of a subdivision. So you'll see there's going to be actually just 2 lots with that, both commercial. Again, here's the aerial view. Lot 1 is 4.05 acres with that current use, Accessories Unlimited. And then the Lot 2 would be a total of 22.42 acres. It just has a 1,500 square foot shed on there. I think it's just storage. I'm not sure if they have any plans really to develop anything there, but all of this was in place before it was annexed into the city. So we are looking at 2 pieces of property that currently have no water or sewer connected to it. Our subdivision code requires that anytime you do a subdivision, you're required to either make the connections to city water and sewer or to post bond in the future to get those improvements made before you can do a final plat. They can't sell that Lot 1 without a final plat, so we're looking at some options for them. So I'll show those to you, present those to you, but the final decision, hopefully you'll approve that we will not require them to do any connections to the water and sewer, because it is a pretty severe hardship to get that done. So I know the city is not inclined to extend water and sewer just for those 2 lots when there really isn't any development happening there. So our sewer connections, so you can see I have a snippet of a measurement tool that I use in GIS. So if we're looking at connecting sewer uphill to Fifth Street, that's about 1,500 feet going uphill to the closest manhole. And that's over by Bank of Washington. And that's from Lot 1. And that's the one with accessories unlimited on it. So that was the purpose of my measuring from Lot 1. If we go downhill, we'd have to go to a lift station at Recreation Drive. That's over 2,200 feet. So again, that's quite the traverse through MoDOT right away. So that would be another issue there. And then if you're looking at your water connections, we're pretty much doing the same thing. We're either going uphill 1,200 feet to the nearest water line that goes across Fifth Street. So it's on that west corner there on Fifth Street, or back downhill to the nearest water line, which is a little bit closer, but still over 1,000 feet distance for a water line. So that's quite the expectation to say, hey, build your water line and your sewer lines to the, nearest city-maintained connections there. So we discussed it at length, and there was a lot of back and forth at the end. My staff report originally went out a week before. We made some changes that said that they would have to connect in the future, but we are not going to require that. And here's a section of the code that basically says that the Planning and Zoning Commission, if they find that there's extraordinary hardship and difficulties to do that, that we would provide that variation, and that's would be written out verbiage on the plat. So you have a new plat in front of you. It's a little hard to read because it's in tabloid. The print is pretty small. I had to dig out my reading glasses so that I could read it. But basically, we're saying that they're not required to connect to water and sewer on that plat. And so that's what we're hoping today, that you would allow for this subdivision without requiring them to make those connections. The applicants are here too if you have any questions about further use or any other things that you may think of. I think Steve Kenzel is in the audience.
Were they allowed to build that building on there then without water and sewer connection?
It was before it was in the city
Before it was
limits.
in the city, okay.
So they were on, so that Accessories Unlimited has a well and has a septic system.
Perfect.
And it's not, we have a few situations like that in the city where we have, property with wells, properties with septic. So, it's not like totally abnormal, but yeah, our subdivision rules do say you must connect when you subdivide. This is kind of one of those weird subdivisions that it's not meant for development. So there really isn't a need. The city doesn't see a need to extend water and sewer, and to put that on them to connect would be astronomical.
Steve Kenzel for the record. What has prompted this is one of the occupants of the building in Lot 1 is wanting to buy the building. So the usage is going to be what it has been for more than 20 years. And there's 2 renters in there. All they do is basically store stuff. So there is a toilet in there, there is water, but there's not an active production of product or anything like that. And it may be that the buyer would like to expand the building a little bit. That would be up to her to do at that point. But this is what the building's been used for since Jim Kraft built it. Might even have been 30 years ago, quite frankly. The real problem, further problem is the slope that has come from the highway is you're having to lay water or sewer in fill riprap rock that's already there that's being used to stabilize the highway. So the ability to get MoDOT to approve that is pretty remote at this point, to say the least. So That's what's happening on the left. And so what happened is, when you see those two kind of cutouts, that's where MoDOT actually had to run the supporting retaining all the way down heavily into near the creek. They actually moved that creek a little bit up. That's Betty Parmenter's property. That the creek actually got moved a little bit to the north, or I think would be to the north, for MoDOT to be able to even get that in. So to run a water sewer line, it's run across on the other side of the highway. So you're either going under the highway or you're going way uphill. It's not reasonable for the city to bring it down to the property to tap in, would not be reasonable for the property owner to go up. The property to the east, Lot 2, is at this point tentatively going to be inherited by one of the grandchildren and one of the children. They have no immediate use for that property. They have no immediate plans for that property. They had an idea that really wouldn't have flown. They talked to Sarah about it. I talked to Sarah about it. You know, it was gonna be like storage of RVs and that kind of stuff. It's not zoned properly for that. So they have no immediate use. It was just grandpa's property and the grandson would like to have it. There is water that comes across the highway just a little bit to the left of that little building, that storage building. So they could tap that with no problem. So when I was working with Mark to work through the language here for the plat, what we did is we said on the one to the east that there would not have to be any obligation on the city to bring the water to the property or sewer, same thing with the property owner. On the one to the right, we carved out to say if there was a development of any kind, water is right there. So they would have to tap to the water. We're not trying to duck around that. But the sewer is not. And it's the same problem with MoDOT in terms of a lot of the slope there to even get on their easement would be tough. And there's a different property owner between there. You gotta go all the way down to N Sports to get to the sewer. So it isn't reasonably practical for anybody to do it. In fact, the sewer line runs along the highway on the other side all the way down close to N Sports and then comes across from there. So we're not proposing any secret development here or anything else. Gonna keep using the one property for what it's always been used, and the other one to be inherited by some of the heirs. So that's, and the language, and I apologize, there was a little mix-up. The engineers thought they didn't really have to put the language on until after this meeting and before the city council. There was a request that we get it up here, and quite frankly, the engineer and I fumbled the ball after Mark and I reached an agreement on Thursday. I thought I'd have it up here sooner, so I apologize to all of you for that. And so, but that's basically what it is. City doesn't have to do anything. Property owners, particularly on the one side to the east, if they were gonna develop that, and if it's just a one toilet type situation, they would put in a septic system. If they wanna do anything more that takes sewer, they're gonna be back having to ask how to get that accommodated, but there's no immediate plans for that.
Steve, who owns that little wooded area between their property and N Sports? Is that all part of, or is that somebody else in there?
I'm not sure who owns that, quite frankly.
Is that I mean, the back of the N Sports area is where that sewer comes in. Could you go straight across west?
It's the Parmentier Trust, so it's kind of loops around that property.
So is that
too.
still, does that creek loop up through there and stuff, or
Yeah, follows along there, and then
Okay.
on the backside of.
Well, I was just curious, but has no bearing on what
It
you
would
wanted to do.
take, it would take some doing to connect the properties.
That, I'm just referring to the one to the east is all the, you know, they would have an option of
Yeah,
getting to that easier than if they were connected to the backside of the
right.
in sports.
But that's what
there.
I mean, that's not an easy one either.
No.
There's a pretty, I don't know if it's a creek or a ravine. Sarah probably knows that better than me.
Du Bois, what do we, it's a creek.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
I don't know,
Yeah.
like I said, and offhand, I don't know how far that loops up there and stuff, but still.
Any other questions for Steve from the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you know Lot 2 is in a floodplain, isn't it?
Yes, there is floodplain there, so there's not a lot of options.
That's what I thought, so, okay. Any questions from commissioners?
And the only question is, given the verbiage, at least at what point would we then require, let's say if they do try to truly residential, or at least with the commercial, try to expand it into, I don't know, a big box store or something, let's say, what would we then require, at what point do we require sewage, the water?
Well, I think development-wise, and Charles could probably speak to this, that might be pretty arduous considering it is floodplain. I don't know how much they could develop on there, to be honest.
They would have to raise it quite a bit.
Right, it's
Yeah.
basically, in order to get it to a point where they even would need sewage and water,
Yeah, they
It
would
would
have to
be
go
out
through a
of-
lot
not
of
practical.
expense and,
If they were gonna come in, like in your example with the big box store, at the time they would apply for a building permit, that would have to be addressed at that point. What are you doing with the
Okay.
wastewater?
so there's some checks and balances in place to where we get something developed.
yeah, there's a
Okay.
lot of things that would happen before that would even,
But they know up front
Yeah.
where it's at right now anyway, is what we're getting at.
Right.
I would add one more thing to answer that. To develop that, you also have to have two entrances, depending upon the usage, for fire protection and police protection. And so that was part of the problem in the condemnation was the Crafts had two entrances, but basically that slope and the condemnation for that square that's hard to tell here on this particular one, but between the two properties, that terminated that ability to have that second exit. So I think there's gonna be a tremendous limitation on anything that can go in there. I'm not gonna tell you there wouldn't be something, but I can tell you that it won't be a big box store. There's a way to do it, elevating the building and having your parking in the floodplain, because we looked at that years ago. But you had to have, you're gonna have a lot of people down there, you gotta have two entrances. There's a 40-foot entrance, but just one for each of these tracks. And I can tell you, it's impossible to combine them now, because MoDOT took that much property, so we don't connect anymore. We did, but we don't anymore. So I don't see that being a realistic, there may be some use, I don't know what it is, but there could be some use. But it's gonna have to be something where the police and fire, or the code will accept just one entrance.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes, I have a question. So if the city decides, to go ahead with this, and Steve says that there's no, deadlines or limitations on when that property may be developed, I mean, does the city need any kind of guarantee on that as a timeline?
I think originally there was a bond that was supposed to be posted, but that's what we're
Anything can
talking about.
Anything can happen, I think, but,
Eliminating that requirement, correct?
Yeah, the code says, if it's reasonably available, they have to make the connection to the water and the sewer. And if it's not reasonably available, then they have to post a bond to secure the connection to water and sewer when it is available. What they're suggesting and what Sarah has said is it is neither reasonably available nor is it likely that it will be at any point in the foreseeable future. So they're asking for a variance from the requirement that they either connect or they make the payment of the bond. Like I said, to Rocco's question, if there is some development that occurs there at some point in the future, they're gonna have to come back and they're gonna have to address at that point, how are they gonna handle the water?
so that would be the timeline then. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the variance.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Rocco, second by Mark, to approve the variance for,
well, this subdivision,
Include the preliminary plat, too,
Yeah.
Preliminary plat with a
With the
variance, I
variance.
think is what we're gonna try to do, right?
okay, sorry. Is that okay with you guys that made the motion, preliminary plat, accept the preliminary plat?
Is that the
with-
preliminary plat with the variance described? Mm-hmm.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. Okay, item number 4, file number 25-0502, special use permit, 600 East Fifth Street Community Center.
Okay, so we were down here not too long ago. We were looking at a special use permit for a intensive outpatient facility, which y'all approved in September. Everything has been going so swimmingly that they are coming back and asking if they can also open a community center to provide coffee and other activities for the same people that they service. So they have a little bit more of a community space as opposed to a therapy space. This will be not on the Fifth Street, but on below, so below this building next to it. There's some space available that they were working on renovating, so I think they're still working on that to get their occupancy inspection done. There is parking in the back, as we talked about before, but most of the recipients of their services don't drive, or they get transport, from the program. So they would just, come together in a group. I know that the applicant is here, and she can speak more to the process of getting the services to the people. But that's what we're here for, is to expand that use and to offer a little bit more.
Good
Okay,
evening.
state your name, please,
Tanya Hankins.
and your address.
I'm sorry?
And your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a house at 300 Burnside Street in Washington.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So we, swimmingly is a good word, Sarah. We have been providing recovery housing in Washington, and we have a men's house on Fifth Street and a house on Burnside and 2 in Augusta. And as Sarah mentioned, we have an outpatient program for our participants at 602 East Fifth Street. So we give outpatient groups from 1 to 3 Monday through Thursdays. And what we were doing, so the whole, I don't know how much you guys know about like successful recovery from substance use disorder, but it's about community and connection. So we've been doing things in our program beyond recovery housing and beyond treatment, which is having like fellowship meals once a month in that outpatient space, but there's just a little sink and we all bring a potluck and there's no place to clean chili spoons, and we've actually just outgrown that upper space. So Donna Wilson's the property owner there. She and I have a great relationship, and when I first looked at the property for the outpatient building, I saw this space in the basement and I could immediately visualize a coffee house in the front room and then a dining hall in the back for us to meet and have 12-step meetings. And I'm just gonna say, it looks amazing. We're having an open house. If you guys approve it, you're all welcome to come do it. But it's a needed space for the work that we're doing. We have really good successful outcomes in our housing program. The average length of stay, the last time we populated data was 7 months or more, and we have a lot of people continuing their recovery once they leave us, which is great. And it's just another way to meet the needs of our participants and really open it up. So we'll have 12-step meetings in that space in the dining hall, but we really plan to open it up to anybody in the 12-step recovery community who would like to attend a meeting. So similar to, I don't know if you're familiar with the AA club right here on Jefferson, the Gold Cup. Anybody familiar with that? It's right across the street. But, well, then Alcoholics Anonymous is doing a very good job with the anonymous part.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions for the occupant?
That's nice.
This is not open to the general public, is it?
So it's a great question. We do love being generous and open to, like the coffee house. When God gives us a resource, I don't always know how to use it right off the bat, so it will be for us initially. But they just opened up a bookstore on the top, and I can foresee in the future, if it grows, it being open up to the public also, but not at this time.
And you're just in the lower level of that 600 building, is that correct?
Well, we also occupy 602 East Fifth Street
Which
in
is
the
the
upper
next
level.
building
Next
next
to
to
it.
it.
It's all in the same
Yeah.
building, but it's catty corner, so the
yeah.
outpatient building's on the upper,
Okay.
and then this is on the lower, on the opposite side below the bookstore.
Is that what
So-
your picture you have up there, Sarah? Is
Yeah,
that-
so as you can see in this picture, you got Wilson and Company Insurance. And so the 602 is just kind of attached to that, and then this is the lower level.
So access to the lower level, is that strictly from the back, or you
Yes.
have down
Strictly from
through
the back
where
parking.
you're, so it's strictly from the back
Yeah,
only?
that picture showed it, Sarah, the one right before it.
You mean that one after it, of the parking lot?
Yes,
Yeah,
so that is
that's
the back
access there.
entrance there, and then on the left side of that photo, where those windows, that whole back space there is, so you walk in and it's to the left, and it's, expands the space of the building, and that's the only entrance to it, there's a little foyer there.
So Sarah, this special use permit will apply to the entire building then, the second
Well,
floor?
the special use permit is tied to the property, yes. So I would say yes, because it's not something she would take with
Get that
her.
clarified, because
Yeah.
that we're, if we would approve it, we're approving it for the whole building and not
Mm-hmm.
just her portion of it.
Well, may I ask what's the special use permit title is required, so a special use permit?
It's to operate the community
Community
center.
So
Yeah.
your concern is if you say that we can operate a community center and then we vacate the property and it's given this special use, then anybody can open up a community center there.
That's basically.
Well, we're not going anywhere.
Well, that's one of our concerns whenever
Right.
we do this, is that stays with that property, so.
Yes, this year we have to fund it from our organization, but I'm on the board of the Missouri Coalition of Recovery Support Providers, so I know that next year, the Department of Mental Health is opening up an invitation for a bid to open up 4 new recovery community centers, like it's a big deal in the recovery community world, and we'll likely get a contract for that and be funded, so that's why I say that, because we really, even if we didn't receive a contract from the Department of Mental Health, we would find the funds to do it because it's such an integral part of the good work that we're doing. But, I mean, I know you guys have to make a decision, just say we weren't around forever, but I'm just saying that we probably are going to be.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
So if they were to open up to the public, then it would just kind of come back to figure out other licensing or permitting, or I'm just curious how that would work.
Well, when they leave, they'd still have to go through the occupancy inspection process and make sure that it meets the code, building code, but the special use permit to allow the community center there would stay unless we revoke it. So if there's any issues that we feel like we need to attend to, then yes, we could revoke that special use permit.
At a future date somewhere
Yes.
down the road?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
If no other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Carolyn, to approve the special use permit for 600 East Fifth Street, the community center. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item is file number 25-0503, special use permit 3001, Recreation Drive for a food truck.
Yeah, we were just here, so it's a different parcel, but yes, in the same area, C2 zoning, Recreation Drive. We have N Sports Recreation Center that just changed hands. And they're expanding their use and activities and doing a few more things. And they have a business called Messy Betty's that has other locations, but first in Washington here, they actually applied for a roadside stand permit, which they received. So they have approval from the property owner. They have their insurance. It is actually just a food tent that they set up and then they take down, and they just do it periodically. So they were allowed to do that 10 days out of the calendar year. I said if you wanted to expand that, you'd have to apply for a special use permit. So that's why they're here to do that. Like I said, it's a tent. It's literally one parking spot. As you can see, technically, I guess they'll be right there in front of the front door, but the parking, I tried to count it. It's a lot. It's a lot of parking. I went and looked up an old site plan, and the parking is not quite how they had originally planned it out, but it's probably about 160 to 170 spaces. I've never seen that parking lot full. There's no drive-through, it's,
The gun show.
oh, the gun show, okay. didn't drive by when they were doing
Or
that.
if the wedding show is there.
Okay.
Those are biggies.
Those are big events. But they don't, it's not a drive up, it's not like a food truck where they drive up, so there's no car stacking needed. People just park and they walk there from the recreation center. So I do not see that as being a hardship, on the parking or, bleeding out into, as you can see, there's a lot of cars that would have to be out on that, recreation drive to actually bleed out into Missouri, 100. So I'm not worried about that. There isn't any extra noise or anything that's going to come from that. That's not a music venue or anything. I think the rec center would be probably louder than the food tent. So I do not see an issue with this special use permit.
So the way I understand, they're putting the tent up and taking it down every day, is what you're
Every day that they're there, yes. Which right now it sounds like just Wednesdays and then occasionally on the weekends.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the application, they have 2 tents up there, but you only have 1 listed in your criteria for staff recommendation.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 1 tent. So, and Antonio's here. He's the
Okay.
applicant. He can clarify.
Okay. Come on up and give us your name and address, please.
Antonio Triplett. I'm at 600 South Brentwood Boulevard, Clayton, Missouri, condo number 3.
Okay?
So we do have 1 tent, but when it rains, we do use 2. 2 is for the fryer. Also, that takes care of the fire protection as well.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
What food do you serve?
We serve smash burgers and chicken sandwiches. We are fully operational in Franklin County, 70% of the time, 20% in Jefferson County, and about 10 to 15% in St. Louis County as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we approve this, can you give us a lifetime discount on your food?
There's a lot of people that come up as of now, so,
No, you're good.
I'm always able to throw a free one out there.
You're the man.
You're
You're the
there.
man.
Remember him.
Yeah.
Wednesdays every week?
Yes, so it's Wednesdays if I don't have an event planned. Right now, we have 8 pop-up locations during the week, Monday through Friday, and that's stacked on top of each other. But we also do events. Now, occasionally they do ask us to come out on a Sunday or a Saturday, and we would do it. But I'm pretty close to staying in the line of those 10 days. So usually, though, it's always Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Then I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, second by Chad, to approve the special use permit at 3001 Recreation Drive for a food truck, or tent, I guess it would be in this case.
Yeah, food tent.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, next item. Item number 6, street grade variation at the Highlands. Sarah?
So we approved the Highland preliminary plat a while back. I don't have the date on there, I apologize. They are looking at this connection here to Emily, and the grade, the maximum that we allow is a 10% grade. It's really not feasible, and I can, again, let Charles speak more to that. He's the engineer working on this. But it's gonna be a very difficult ask. So they're asking for an approval for a variance to the 11.58% grade. And again, Charles can speak to all the good reasons why we should approve that.
Charles?
Yeah, so they're looking, you can see right there, it's about 150 feet right at the end of where Emily stops today. Emily Lane is at 10% right now, and then right at the end, it just, you know, the grade shoots up. It's really steep right there. So they're already gonna have to do blasting on Emily Lane as you're closer to High Street to get that grade down. They wanna avoid blasting, you know, closer to the homes. So they're asking for this variance. That way they can still manage that, breaking it out without blasting, but still have a through street through there. So I know we just talked about, you know, not approving these variances for over the street grade, but in this case, I feel like it makes a lot of sense trying to tie in a stub street, making that a through street, and also kind of protecting the neighboring homes from trying to, you know, blasting and breaking rock even closer to them, so.
Well, at least on this one, you'll, with your snow plows and stuff like
Right,
that,
it's a-
you
it's
can have a run at it.
It's a through
and
street,
It's a
it's
through
not
street.
right
It's-
at the beginning of
Right.
when you turn off.
It's
you
not
know,
into a
start at
cul-de-sac or
11.
something like that, you know, or down into a cul-de-sac,
Right.
like we've talked on the connectivity.
Exactly.
Any issues with stormwater runoff being that steep, or is that pretty much part of the whole system that's down there that runs into Emily?
Yeah, so you can see the inlets right there at, what is it, Charles Drive. So they'll catch all of Emily
okay.
to that point, so then you're only talking about that
Okay.
150 feet will be added to the existing Emily Lane. So, not a huge concern.
Didn't see that in the fine print.
Oh, no, we get
Any other questions for Charles?
And this comes to us and not the Board of Variance because?
It's part of the subdivision code, so a variance would come from this commission and city council.
Okay.
That's how it's historically always been done, but normally it's when they bring the preliminary plat, they just neglected to do that this time, so.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay,
What do you think?
I'm fine with it, being it's a short,
Yeah.
is that 150 feet?
150
something like
feet
that.
right in the middle, and
If it was longer, like 14th Street, be a different story,
Yeah.
but yeah, for that short span.
And since it's just straight on through and stuff
Right.
too,
And
it's
it's-
like,
It's vital to a connection, yeah.
Right.
And it's like we talked about at street connectivity for those of us that were
That's
there.
exactly right.
I mean, if we can do our part to help a developer without raising the cost to the property owners, we continue to have more affordable housing. And it's the city working with the developer to make something work that is not detrimental.
Correct.
That's the way I looked at it as well.
but as, you know, as I pointed out earlier, it's like, you know, it's not like you're going into that cul-de-sac on horse camps. And it's like, you know, you can get a run at it to go straight on through for the city services and stuff like that, the snow plows and the trash
Trash.
pickup and stuff like that, you know.
yeah, I feel like you're talking about two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and the city has lived with 14th Street forever.
Okay, if no other questions or comments for Charles, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. to
Second.
approve.
Motion by Chuck, seconded by Mike, Chad, okay, somebody.
Whichever.
To approve the variance for the street grade at the Highlands subdivision per staff recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, number 7,
Okay, so this is
comp plan.
the presentation I promised all of you. Still working on putting it into something, you know, more interactive for the public, but for this case, to give you guys a quick review, we're gonna make it real quick. So Aaron Griesheimer.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Aaron.
Aaron Griesheimer, Economic Development Director, for those of you that don't know.
Welcome.
So, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Aaron's gonna start because the big part of it is, did y'all get, you know what, I don't think here, I think you set your, notebook on here.
Are you talking this?
I don't think this went in the packet. No, that's code changes. So let me just give this to you. If you want to follow along, here is what the comprehensive plan says are our short-term goals. And I forgot it's not in the packet. So if you want to follow along, so you can kind of see all the things that we're tasked to do and how we're accomplishing those goals currently.
And really, thank you to all the commissioners for your vested interest in this. This really is very important. I know a couple weeks ago, I just came from an economic development conference, and one thing they stressed was the first thing you do for economic development is have a comprehensive plan or a strategic plan. So thank you guys for having an interest.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Please do.
Sure. This comp plan, you guys, a lot of cities have a comp plan because it gives you access to grants and such. They do the comp plan every 10 years and it sits and gathers dust on the shelf. We don't do that. Most decisions we make here, nearly every one of them, we ask each other, does this apply to our comp plan? Does it follow it? And it's not a hard and fast document, but it gives us an indication of what our citizens want because our citizens have had input into that comp plan. And so we have and will continue to view it as a pretty darn important document. Thanks, Aaron.
Well, and
Thank
one
you,
of the
Mayor.
things too, and this is one I asked a month ago, our 1 year anniversary is coming up this month, so I want to keep that in the forefront, and next year we'll see we'll be 2 years into it, and we would expect an update at that point too then, so.
Right. So, and keep in mind, these short-term implementation strategies are 1 to 3 year timeline. So like we said, this is a 1 year anniversary. There's a lot that we're already accomplished, a lot that we're just starting, and then some things that we haven't touched on, and we're, going to evaluate whether or not those are important strategies. So we'll get to that. You'll see that when we get through those. So we'll start with the first goal, which is community history and regional distinction, and the primary department responsible for this is economic development.
So starting off, goal 1.1 is enhance downtown Washington with more dining, shopping, and lodging to support residents, tourists, and regional day trippers. I'm happy to report to all of you that city staff has been meeting with several different developers. One who is looking to develop a conference center in downtown Washington, and another who is looking at developing a hotel and a mixed-use development along Fifth Street. So we have that. So 1.4. Establish an annual calendar of community events in Washington with weekly concert series, expanded seasonal events, etc. You can actually go to visitwashmo.com, which is the tourism director's website, or the tourism website, and it features a collection of different events from downtown Washington and the area Chamber of Commerce. If you go to the next one, here's just a little snippet. You can see it has all of the events throughout the year, like I said, for downtown Washington and the area Chamber of Commerce. And here's a nice little visitor's guide that actually our tourism department put together. You can see it's got some recommendations for our visitors with restaurants, fast food, shopping, other attractions throughout the area. So it's really well put together.
Where is that distributed a lot?
There's physical copies that are located throughout downtown at some of our shops. I know the Chamber of Commerce has some available in their offices. We have some here at City Hall, and you can also access the virtual copy on the tourism website.
But is any of them promoted St. Louis County or things like that and stuff too? I mean, is there certain groups that?
So I think Emily has stated that she makes sure these distributed along the Amtrak routes, the stations, so those are out there outside of Franklin County as well. But then they just created the digital version, so that's going out to all different platforms.
Okay, next one. 1.5, continue to market quality of life and promotional materials to site selectors, industries, and the future workforce. One thing that is stressed, especially since the general population in America, people aren't having as many children. One thing with economic development, if you're going to entice companies to locate here, one thing you need to stress is quality of life. And obviously, Washington has a great quality of life. So actually, whenever I took over as Economic Development Director, as all of you know, we have an economic development designated website, washmoworks.com, and it has information regarding available properties, demographics, infrastructure, workforce, quality of life right there that we've added. So if you go to the next slide, you click on quality of life. It has information on all of our hospitals, all of our housing options that we have here in town. If you go to the next one, there's also educational opportunities, just talking about our local or our public and private schools, and there's also one on public safety. So, and also we've, on many of the material that we send out to companies to try to get them to locate here or think about Washington, we've created a quality of life page with virtually, they have a virtual option where they can click on housing and it directs them to those websites as well. So if you go to the next one. So 1.6.
Aaron, can I ask just, what was that website again?
Washmoworks.com.
That's a cool thing. It is. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know what's happening.
Oh, no
My
problem.
ghost. It looks like you found some of our brochures. There
Sitting
you
in
go.
my office
Can't stop you,
gathering
Mayor.
dust.
Can't stop them.
No. All right, back to 1.6.
So 1.6, create a public relations and marketing program designed to attract private investors and development talent. So I'm actually meeting with Emily Underdown Hopkins to develop a PR marketing strategy in regards to economic development and how we can use that. Because I know some of our material needs to be updated, especially the videos that were created, stuff like that. So picking her brain on what she thinks we could do since she was involved in the first initial marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think that Chuck's point will be interesting just to see whether you're using different commissions or getting the word out. I think we have a lot of like networking opportunities to do this very well in Washington specifically. Being out of the county, yeah, we have so much opportunity here.
We do. We're very fortunate. Next one, please.
So this is goal 2, and again, economic diversity and amplification, and there is a mix of economic development and planning involved in this goal.
Page.
So starting with 2.1, continue the city's annual business retention and expansion program. So obviously this is very important with all of our major industries in town. So basically with my first year, I kind of went with our top, I kind of started from the point of make for sure I get out and meet with all of our top 10 employers in town. So I'm happy to report last year I met with 8 of our top 10 employers, the school district, WEG, the Magnet Group, and many other industries in town. Made for sure, just so they know who I am, know a face if they have any issues to come to me. And then also, as part of the Business Retention and Expansion Program, we're working with the Chamber of Commerce locally to create a Salute to Industry Award that we will be awarding at the next annual banquet. So in 2026, this will consist of the chairman of 353, the chairman of WCIC, the city administrator, myself, and the executive director of the chamber. So we haven't necessarily established what the guidelines will be, but we'll be meeting shortly to kind of lay all those out. So 2.2, continue collaboration with the Missouri Partnership and Greater St. Louis, Inc. to market Washington to new and existing businesses. So one of the things they stressed with this job, and especially at the conference, was relationships. So actually, I've been going to a lot of different events, and actually this Thursday, there's an event at Union Station, so I'll be there marketing in Washington to a bunch of different site selectors. And then Friday, there's another networking event, so relationships. So next one, please. So 2.3, maintain a database of maps and other relevant information to help attract new business. So actually we have 2 different sites, washmo.gov, the city's website. We actually have a mapping portal. So if you go to the front page and you click on the mapping portal right there, That'll take you to all the different maps that Sarah's done a great job of creating. You can see all of those right there.
Whoa. I did not create all these maps, but I did say from the get-go, these maps need to be available and they do not need to be hidden, because they were on web pages and you had to literally go find them to see, to click on, oh, here's a map, the ward map. You know, I said we have to have it all in one place so people can just find the maps right away. And so that when they recreated the website, I said, make the mapping portal and make those buttons or those tiles so that people, they're pretty and you can just go right to them. So I didn't make them. I did update some of them though. I did make the short-term.
There, so you updated some.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
I
yes.
added some pieces.
So all those are available right on our city's website. So next one. So in regards to marketing material, you can see right there on our Washmo Works website, there's an aerial of the Oldenburg Industrial Park. One thing we did in the fall is we did 360 images of all of our available properties that we're marketing to industries. And then you can see the different flyers that we use to market our properties, and you can see the aerial views, stuff like that. Next one. So 2.4, target industrial clusters for additional employer and workforce expansion focused on Washington's strengths and needs toward a goal of economic diversity and resilience to recessions. And those 4 key industries were healthcare, information technology, transportation and warehousing, and education. So obviously we do market to these types of industries, but we get a lot of RFIs from Greater St. Louis Inc. And if we have properties that do qualify for their needs, we fill out those spreadsheets and then we send them the marketing material. So while we are obviously trying to market to these industries, we also don't want to cut short maybe potential industries that we could locate here to Washington. So 2.5, partner with one or more technical schools to establish a high-tech emerging market training and educational school in Washington. So our current technical schools, we're very, very fortunate with Four Rivers Career Center here in town, as all of you know. East Central College has their Center for Workforce Development, and obviously just an hour's drive away, State Technical College. We've actually approached State Technical College to see if maybe they would be interested. They said at this time they're just not very interested, but we're continuing to look at other opportunities that may be available out there.
Have you thought about Rankin at all?
We have not talked to Rankin yet, but that is a good suggestion.
Talk to you afterwards.
Will do. 2.6, continue participation in and sponsorship of Connect Washington. So you can see the board positions there with Dr. Kephart, Tyler with Downtown Washington, Jennifer Giesick with the Area Chamber of Commerce, and myself. Sal actually was a partner in this program when it first began, and with his absence, I just took his place. So, next one.
Okay, so this is just cut right out of the comprehensive plan. It's the Mixed-Use Innovation Overlay District. We haven't pursued a whole lot of growing this area, but I just wanted to present this to you, saying that this wasn't just something that we just came up with. They identified this area as a potential mixed-use innovation overlay district. So that may be coming down the line, but currently right now we're not working on anything on the planning side.
Is that map available on the website?
Yes. So all the comprehensive.
All in the comp plan, right? Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Maybe not just that one type, because it's all on the land use map and it's called out each type of land use. So this one, I kind of snipped it out and identified it from the comprehensive plan that is also on the website, but that specific map is not. It's part of the bigger map. Does that make sense?
Totally,
Okay.
thank you.
Is this one the chicken or the egg? Does somebody need to come to us with an idea to do a mixed development and then we can adjust the code, or if we adjust the code, will
I
that
think
attract somebody?
code drives the attraction. I mean, if you don't have a accommodating code, people aren't gonna come because it's gonna take a process to get that done. But they already, identified some uses that kind of fell into that type of overlay district, so it's kind of already there, and we just need to change the zoning.
So we need to change the zoning code to make this more plausible for
Right.
industries?
Yeah, so throughout the whole comprehensive plan, there's been suggestions about code changes. And I'm gonna present some of those to you today. One of them that I think we won't be pursuing in the near future is a form-based code. I don't know if Sal had brought that up in the past. I really like form-based codes, but it's really hard to say to a developer, it has to look like this. This is how you have to design your building. We already have that in the historic districts where we have a design review and we have suggestions and things that we say, we want it to look like this. But to say that throughout the city, saying it has to have this form versus this use, that's, probably not something that's best for Washington. But there's other ways of changing the code that allows for certain types of uses more in a mixed way, and we're gonna deal with that or talk about that here in just a second as well. So identifying the future land use that supports the growth and revitalization for retail, office, and mixed-use development. So one of the examples from the comprehensive plan was putting in the residential and maybe some more like entertainment type uses where Phoenix Center currently is. So there is a lot of future development that can happen, and how can we encourage the type that brings in more mixed use as opposed to just commercial. You can see in the graphic on the right, that's actually in process. We don't have an overlay district, but through specific zoning, we have the commercial along the corridor 100. This is the Highland Meadows development that's currently going on. Then down through High Street, you have more of a senior type living development, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then you'll have the single family housing, which we just talked about they're doing the variance for the street connection on Emily Lane. So you do have, in a generally small area, you have a mix of uses, but they're zoned commercial, zone senior when we had that senior zoning, and zone single family. The idea is to allow those uses without just that one specific zoning type. But this would be an example of, kind of what we're looking for to redevelop some of our areas and expand.
So is there any movement with anything going on in Phoenix Center?
Not that I'm
All
aware
that?
of. There's not been any conversation about new development. I think the newest thing would be the fire department.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
But
so,
I just was curious, because I think if I remember right from the comp plan, that was a pretty unique development that they talked about doing out there, and I think that's something that, there's a lot of land sitting
Yeah.
there vacant right now that's nothing doing with, and I think we need to
push that.
somehow push that, because I think that's part of what we wanted in the comp plan, was to see that intermix going on, and not just all the big box stores and the big retail.
Right.
And with the walkability and the park out there and the connection now with the bridge going through, I think that would be an ideal place for that type of development. So maybe that's something that city
Yeah.
staff can
Yeah, we
boards and take a
We
look
have
at.
been discussing how to move into the future with these types of developments, these big shopping complexes, how they tend to, we could probably think about the 47-100 intersection and how those commercial complexes, some of them are just outdated and empty. And what do you do in the future with those? Because the new businesses aren't, they're not beating the door down trying to get in there.
So some underutilized areas is what we've talked about.
Yes, and how to change that. So that's definitely a conversation we're having, not directly with Phoenix Center, but just generally, how do we bring those back to life? Yeah.
So has the development group at Phoenix Center been shown this in the comp plan?
I have not had a conversation with Vernacci. That's not something that I've talked.
Is that
have
something-
you?
I have not.
Okay, so neither one of us have talked to.
Is that something we should do as a city? I mean, maybe he doesn't know that this was part of our comp plan, and I don't know, I'm just asking.
Never hurts to talk.
Yeah.
No.
It's hard because I will say from my position, and I think we as city employees have to be very careful with that we're not favoring one development over another, if that's fair.
Sure.
So it's a sticky situation, if that makes sense.
I just would hate to see that just sit there.
Yeah. I think it's a matter of the city changing again code that encourages that type of development. And then once you've got that set in place, then it's a lot easier for them to see, oh, the potential, I can do this instead of just this.
Okay,
So,
very good.
yeah. So it's coming down the line.
So back to me, 2.11, take the economic development strategies on the road to demonstrate that Washington is at the forefront of economic growth and innovation and assure that Washington is top of mind among relevant leader organizations. So in there, we just kind of showed you Greater St. Louis, the MEDC, the Missouri Economic Development Council, the Missouri Partnership, and of course, the Missouri Department of Economic Development. We have great relationships, fortunately, with all four of these different organizations. I am active on the road at different conferences, making for sure that those individuals know who I am, that I'm building relationships with key individuals in those different organizations. So we are doing that currently.
Okay, goal 3, so getting back to downtown, the expansion and enhancement of downtown. Again, Economic Development and Planning Department have a collaborative effect on this. So we have the redevelopment of Fifth Street into a pedestrian-friendly multi-use corridor that serves as a new entrance into downtown. We're working with PGAV right now on a Fifth Street corridor strategy. They're almost at completion. We've had a few conversations. They've given us a qualifications analysis. Definitely, we're looking at it as a conservation area that needs some help. We do have a developer that is interested, has bought some key parcels and wants to redevelop those areas. So the PJAV is just putting it together, finalizing that economic impact study. And the I think we're looking at it, maybe a TIF district to secure the funds to kind of bring this back to life. Maybe a SID, they haven't really said one way or the other what they would recommend, but this is the corridor that we've identified as being part of that study.
Yeah, so the city has a meeting on Wednesday with the different public entities that would be affected if we were to develop a TIF district. But yes, you can see right here, as Sarah said, this is kind of the boundary that we've outlined for PGAV to identify, and it has those 2 key parcels in that district that we talked about. So 3.4, develop a comprehensive downtown parking strategy to provide shared parking facilities in strategic locations. So we've actually, the city, along with other nonprofit leaders, the Downtown Washington, Inc., and the Chamber of Commerce, we've established a downtown parking committee, also with some local business owners as well, to look at if there's ways that we could somehow increase parking in downtown areas. And so we've gotten together, we've met a couple times, and we have actually put together some different criteria that we'd like to maybe seek out, maybe a parking feasibility study to some consultants, and to see what that cost would be if we were to hire a consultant. We're hoping that maybe the consultant could identify ways maybe that we're not thinking of to add parking into our downtown area, especially during events where it gets really crowded. Let me just stress that this is a great problem to have, is it not? So we're trying to look at maybe hiring a consultant to put together a parking feasibility study. And the worst case scenario is if we can't fit any more parking spots, to potentially put a parking structure or parking garage somewhere in the downtown area.
And I would argue that's my hope, because then we can do the infill of those surface lots that are just an eyesore. So
Okay.
we'll see what happens. Goal 4, housing development and diversification. Again, economic development and planning working together. So we're looking at high-end residential housing and subdivisions, and I know because planning and zoning has to approve those first, so you know that they're there. We have the Highlands, which is what we were just looking at, the single-family homes. We have about 48 that have
building permits off of High Street. Highland Meadows, we have about 16 single-family homes also off of High Street. And then our Stonebridge phases 1 through 5, in total, there'll be 219 single-family homes, and that's in South Washington. So just graphically, you can see there's our preliminary plat for the Highlands and Highland Meadows, the housing stock. Those are images of what they would be building there or what they have been building. Stonebridge, again, they just had their grand opening ribbon cutting for phase 4 and 5. And you can see those high-end residential houses that they're developing there. And if you pay attention to Zillow, they're definitely high-end prices too. So, at least for my pocketbook. And then we're also looking at not just the high-end, because we need to diversify our housing. So we're looking at the entry-level workforce housing and considering the use of incentives. We really haven't needed to use any incentives. I think the developers are here and they know that this is good for them. So right now we have the crossing on Fifth, which you saw a while back. They have right now 80 apartments scheduled and 134 townhomes. And there's if you drive down East Fifth Street, you've seen a lot of them already built and ready to go, and they're pre-leasing. So it's just right around the corner. And then if you're going along 100, going out to New Haven in that area, you've seen the Washington Terrace. So they're also rapidly building now after a long back and forth stint of what was going to happen over there. So our phase 1 has 112 apartments, and I think there is conversation now about phase 2, what that's going to look like. So be ready for that. Again, all workforce housing, townhomes, apartments, that kind of thing. So a lot of options for our young people that are trying to get out and, not ready to buy a house, but definitely don't want to live at home with their parents.
Sarah?
Yes.
Just back on that Washington Terrace there.
Yes.
How do people contact?
We were just talking about that, and that is because I was able to find all the pre-leasing information for all the other developments except for this one.
I know, and that's what, just looking at What's Up Washmo, there's 2 different What's Up Washmos on Facebook, and it's like there's been a number of times people have wanted to find out more information, and you just can't find information on
No. So
whether it's pre-leasing or just whatever.
Yeah.
You can't.
I know. I am not necessarily spending a lot of time talking to the developer, Blake Marquardt, who, approves all these plans. We put him to the task, so he's reached out to John McCarthy, hasn't heard yet, but hopefully there is something out there that we just haven't been able to find. But generally looking for it based off of the
There's not
name
even
of
a
the
sign.
development has not,
There's
yeah.
nothing out there.
Yeah,
That was
there's
their
nothing.
complaint. They
There-
had driven around trying to see if there was a sign.
Right,
Everybody else has a sign, but they
Yeah.
had nothing.
yeah.
So,
There's interest, but it's like,
yeah.
there's, just like what you're getting at with all this other stuff, it's like, we're promoting things and you're promoting, moving to the area and stuff, and they're interested in finding out more because what they're seeing, but there's no way that they can find anything out.
Yeah, their marketing is a little lax, but they're definitely building like crazy.
Yeah, I know.
We have it all addressed. There's 5 buildings that you see here for phase 1. They've all been addressed, so it's already out there.
Yeah.
It's just they need to get that marketing piece out, and once we get that information, we'll send that out.
Yeah, similar to all of you, I've had people ask me as well, and I've reached out to Sarah trying to get a number, so.
And I don't know if the commission all knows this or not, but that development, as well as the crossing, those buildings are all fully sprinkled, residential. And that was part of the agreement that they made down by Hillerman's. They have one way to have that,
Yeah.
basically a dead-end street.
Yeah.
But those are all gonna be sprinkled, so that's a huge, huge benefit for us. So, anyway.
And then we had the goal of defining and maintaining a sustainable balance of owner-occupied and rental housing, including the short-term rentals. So I know a while back before I came on board, there was a lot of pushback from the community saying we have too many vacation rental dwellings, so we
did the zoning change that didn't allow it in residential, and it kind of slowed it down, but you can see the data, 2024, we've only had 60 active, and that hadn't changed since I started. So this just, it's what the market allows, and if you start, a business and you're not doing well, you're gonna jump out, and a few people have actually come to me and said, well, I think I'm gonna do long-term rental now, is that okay? And I'm like, yes, that's fine, you can do that. So we're not, oversaturated with short-term rentals. I don't have the numbers on what are owner-occupied versus rental-occupied. I thought maybe we could get that through our system, our Tyler system for utilities. I wasn't able to get that information. So I don't have that, but I think that we have a decent balance, especially now that we're infusing the market with a lot more the rentals that are coming down the line with these new developments. The amount of revenue that was generated last year was about $274,000 in short-term rental. So it's a little bit of money. It's not bad, and I think we're at a happy compromise. Did not mean to do that. If you haven't seen the map, here's our map of just the downtown area, so that we have a few that were grandfathered in that are in the residential, like the R1A or R1B, that you don't see here, but most of them are, focused the C3, C2 overlay, and then if it's an R2 overlay, which is, around the downtown core, it's gonna have that buffer, so that's the circles around those buildings there. The blue ones are the active ones, and the red ones are not, opposite. The red ones are active, the blue ones are not active. So they're just kind of sitting there, either long-term rental, or they're just vacant right now. I know that there's one that hasn't had their water on since they got a special use permit. I guess they never followed through. They just never decided to do it, but they have it, so if they ever change their mind, they can do that, because it does stay with the property. So. And then our infill housing, which is near and dear to my heart, I like to see us build up what we currently have. So we do have the Bluffs at Pastora Place, again, another project that seemed like it was taking forever to get going, but now it's going. And then the Front Street development has been going for a long time and is still in process, as you know, because y'all always approve this stuff. So back to the Bluffs at Pastora, you can see high-end residential going in off of Washington Avenue. And then the Front Street development, I had to dig this out of the archives because I wasn't even sure what that was. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on there. So Andy's development, he's currently finishing up that property on Main and Market, Jefferson.
Is that the last of his developments down there?
I think so. I don't know of any.
So too.
I don't think of any.
They're gonna have the Apple Dental and a.
Yeah.
Jones.
Mhm.
Up to, I understand, their condos already been sold.
Yeah, there's 3 and then
Run out
2
of
on the
people,
top
but he
floor.
doesn't.
Yeah. So, and I try to look for any marketing on that too, and I think that's all word of mouth, because I couldn't find anything. So, and then back to the senior housing that we talked about before. Now, we don't have a senior district, zoning district anymore, but we do have PDRs that cater to that type of development that is more compact, one level, the smaller. So these are attached, like townhomes. And so they're a lot easier for seniors to navigate, get in and out, and, maintain their yards and that kind of thing without having to be maybe in an apartment style type complex. So there's the villas at High Street, that's in development. And then all of those phases, the Riverbend Estates phases off of High Street. So third phase is, I think, completed. It's been a while, so I would say they're done, but once they go through planning and zoning, I kind of step back and I don't really pay attention much to what's going on with the building phases. So, but that's those developments there.
So back to the other one, the previous one, I forgot what it was.
The villas at High Street?
Yes. That doesn't seem to be taking off very fast, is that?
Yeah, it's, I should have talked to Tim when he was in here. We're in the Street Connection committee together, but yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of development going on.
No,
Yeah.
I was wondering.
And this is right off their website, so you can see that they're marketing to the 10 units there. They don't even have, anything, it's like not called out for the other ones. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's taking so long. I don't know if it's a price point or,
I was just curious, because I noticed in driving around that doesn't seem to be progressing like the
Yeah.
others have been.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of factors with that, but I would, don't want to argue that it's one thing or another.
Didn't know if you'd heard
Yeah.
anything.
No, I haven't heard anything. No change in plans, so. And again, that's not necessarily just geared towards seniors, it just, it is designed so that it could be for seniors, but it's not senior development. Goal 5, transportation and infrastructure, so we're looking at now the engineering department, so just, going forward, a lot of this is, I asked them to give me feedback, and I'm just giving you what they gave me, and I may not know anything about it. So bear with me if you have questions and I can't answer. But we're looking at a variety of different departments, including tourism, which is through the Chamber of Commerce. So, we went back and forth, Aaron and I, about this goal, and no one really understands where this was coming from, because it says, say, wayfinding of major roads within Washington. And so we do have Downtown Washington Inc. that replaced the wayfinding signs and looks so much better. So I use those, but those are not the major roads. So what major roads? The highway, 44, I'm not sure where they were going with that. And maybe that's not as important of a goal right now to think, oh, we need to replace all these signs. But as we find signs that need to be updated, that would be something that we would look at. Some of them are kind of old and sad.
Maybe it had to do with like certain districts, like a downtown district, making it look different than the other sign, like yard or the street signs
Yeah.
in the city.
Could be.
So other city, like their downtowns basically have like a unique looking street sign.
Yeah, and Historic
be that.
Preservation is working on doing some signage in there.
Okay.
We could discuss that being the street signs as well, but they are wanting to use like pedestal signs that, showcase this is this district you're entering. So we're working on that, a little bit of a budget to spend, so it's gonna take some time if we're gonna do it right. But that's definitely, so if you have any suggestions for that, feel free to email me and let me know, hey, let's do this, or if you see a sign that looks sad and it needs to be updated, feel free to reach out.
Well,
So-
maybe, I don't know I haven't been to St. Charles for a while, but I know at one time their downtown district was that way,
Yeah.
where it had a
Yeah.
completely different looking signage in that district, which
Yeah.
really, I think,
Well, if you
to
drive
that.
into Kirkwood, they'll have the Monroe or the Argonne or whatever, and they have a sign, historic district. And it's very classy looking.
Nice.
And you know where you are, that you're in something.
Right.
And that's cool. And we talked about that back in the day when I was still on historic preservation, because that's a really nice way to, you don't want to beat them to death with signs, but at the same time, that establishes downtown as a unique.
I mean, maybe we get Downtown Washington Inc. to basically foot the bill for changing the signs, like the street signs themselves, and have their logo on it or something. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be a lot of different ways that we could do it, just not the same green and white signs.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah, that calls out that it's a historic
Yeah.
district.
Correct.
Now, I will, on that point that both of you made, I will say that we are working with Downtown Inc. and Tourism for an over-the-road sign that will say, "Welcome to Downtown Washington." The exact location, we are not sure. We've talked about Jefferson Street, but then we've also talked about Fifth Street. So
A lot of compromises there, but yes, there is
Right.
conversation, so.
So to your point about feeling like you're in a special place, we hope to get that sign. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so then we're looking at adding designated bicycle and pedestrian facilities, so our sidewalks, bike lanes, shared lanes. So again, all part of the maps that you saw, a lot of the major roads getting worked on. Jefferson Street, if you've missed it, take Jefferson Street before you go home, because
Yep.
there's a lot going on there, and I'm so excited to see sidewalks.
And then future projects, you know, the ADA improvements everywhere so that people can walk, they can bike, they can have easy access, so Highway 100 and High Street, East Fifth Street from Highway 100 to Old Highway 100, and then Phase 2 of the Bush Creek Greenway. So that's a really great trail. I love it. Goes through the neighborhood, and they're looking at some expansions of that with the master parks, the parks master plan that they're coming out with here soon. So there's going to be recommendation for that. This is just a snippet from their master plan.
I guess on the biking, just because I have a lot of experience with cycling and working with nonprofits in the region, have we thought about consulting like Greenway, basically different nonprofits that specialize in bikeability, walkability, consulting in St. Louis? I mean, there's like at least 3 or 4 that I know of that I could get you connected with.
Yeah.
Learn more about that.
We could. I'm curious to see what the, what's the parks master plan? What's the group that's doing that?
Yeah, I said it earlier and I
You
don't
said it
remember.
earlier.
Yeah.
That's one.
So I'm not part of their conversation, but I'm curious to see what they come up
Okay.
with for their design, because that's kind of their focus.
Okay.
It was just generally put on the comprehensive plan, but I don't think it was as in-depth as what we're gonna see in the Parks Master Plan. And then we can, of course, reach out and expand on that too, so.
I feel like with the Katy Trail, other things that we have around here, it's a good opportunity
Yeah.
for a lot of things.
I would agree.
So, I think this one's, is this yours?
Expand in 5.3, expand infrastructure in future development areas to attract new businesses and residential development, including outside current city limits. So obviously we have our Oldenburg Industrial Park that we're at near completion. If you've driven out that way, you can see that they're expanding Highway 100 right there, adding a turn lane. As much as it is a headache for some of our industries and residents in the area, it's very much needed, especially for safety. So we have that, and then future improvements, the widening of Highway 100 to Voss Brink, widening of 47 South, and then other city projects. So we'll kind of talk about how we hope to fund those in the future.
So, and then this goal is also attached to the previous one, coordinating with MoDOT to expand that Highway 47 to the 4 lanes. And of course, it's, you know, it takes time, and there's been a lot of conversation in the past, but it looks like we're getting closer, and with the renewal of the transportation sales tax, we can really make this a reality. And this is, if you haven't seen it yet, this is on the left, this is our comprehensive plan showing that that's identified as a cross-section. There's Highway 47 crossing with our future Northeast-West Parkway, and on the right is the same thing, but just a different view. It's the aerial view. So that's our focus there for the city, to really expand those lanes to 4 lanes. And then another transportation topic that I love, Amtrak, the train. So, yeah, so tourism, Emily Underdown is working constantly with Amtrak and making sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck here. That's why I was saying that she also makes sure that these are at train stations, you know, that passengers will obviously be waiting at or getting off at, so they know that Washington is a tourist destination as well. So she did want me to mention also that they are discussing 3 daily round trips. So we're lucky to have 2, but 3 would be even better. So. And then this is a nice graphic here.
Have we heard anything about when they're gonna work on the, expanding the pad for disembarking? That was on
Yeah, the concrete
Amtrak's-
work.
I mean, I think that was Amtrak, but it's also the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had, Amtrak actually had representatives here at City Hall. They have some new representatives. They were here, I want to say, a couple months ago. They met with city staff. We did talk about that, and I can't remember what year they talked about completion, but yes, it is still on the, it's still on the radar.
Super close.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the pad is so short that they can do 1 car. And and they always are on the near side because that's where it is. And they would come in and expand the pad so they'd be able to load and unload more than one car at a time. I mean, that sounds like but that's a big deal. That would be really nice.
And it would improve ADA
Yes,
accessibility.
absolutely, so.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
again, ongoing discussions. I mean, it's out there, but I
They've
don't
been
know.
talking about it for a long time, that's why I haven't been in anything to hear.
Yeah.
There was yeah, well, they're always talking down the road.
But I'm happy to follow up with all of you if you'd like to know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our utility and telecom providers, enhancing that availability, reliability. That Gateway Fiber came through and disrupted our lives, but for the good. It was, inconvenient, but here we are now. A lot of us have some other options, looking at AT&T fiber installation in the future, and of course, ongoing spectrum services. So we have options, and a lot of them are really good services. So we're happy to have those.
What would be different between AT&T fiber and Gateway fiber?
Competition.
Just competition? No
That's what I would
difference?
say. I
No
would say you
difference
get a
in
better
speed and
deal.
all that kind of stuff? Okay.
So, and then we have 5.11, study and consider construction of 1 or 2 new fire stations. As you know, we have a fire station that broke ground recently, was approved in January, and we hopefully, I think John would know more as the completion date of that, but it's coming down the line. Future stations may or may not be 5th Street in Stafford, which is the old historic fire station, Highway 100 in St. John's Road, and 2975 Highway A. So I didn't get a whole lot from Tim, but that's what I got from Tim. So,
I can elaborate a little bit if you want.
Sure.
Please.
You want to back up to
Okay.
one slide, that would help. The 5th Street in Stafford, that's the old House 3, if you remember that. When we did the feasibility study and our 10-year plan, that area of town was the hot spot for us. We actually ran more structure fires and actual fires in that area. In that station, there's a dead space between the headquarters station, which, by the way, is going to be called Station 2 whenever Station 1 comes online. So it won't be headquarters, it'll be Station 2. And our current House 3. So if you go down to Front Street, like High and Front, that's not covered by any of the wheel miles for Station 3 or headquarters. So that's why this station right up here, we tried for 3 months, and put an engine in there, a reserve truck, and it worked out pretty good. The challenge is it's a very small building. So until we get, and I believe there's one new pumper coming yet, and I believe 2 more that are going to be ordered for replacement within the next year yet, then we'll probably be moving a truck back up here to 5th and Stafford again, just because of the insurance savings that will create for that downtown Void area. The Highway 100 in St. John's Road, that is in the long-range plan for the Community Fire Protection District. Their first priority is building a new Station 5 at 2975 Highway A and replacing the one in Crockle, because we have some
Do they
structural
have a house?
issues.
They had a sign?
Yes, that's the site. Where
Saw that the other
We've
day.
been tearing the house down, that looks pretty rough right now, because it's got holes cut in it and everything else, but that's where it's gonna be, and that will be the new Station 5 that will replace the one that's in downtown Crockle, if you wanna call it that. So that's kind of an update with where that's going. And that's all gonna be renegotiated again for the next 3-year period coming up with the city and the Community Fire Protection District to fund all that stuff. So.
thank you.
Yes. So, goal 5.13, renew the transportation sales tax and commit funding to road construction, especially the planned improvement to Highway 100. So I can say that the capital improvement sales tax and the transportation sales tax renewal committees have been established. They are going to be meeting this summer, and we're going to be laying out a strategy on how to market that. And so the election will be next year in April. So.
If you guys have any questions about that, please see me afterwards.
There you go. So we have goal 6. We're looking at parks, recreation, and environmental stewardship. And again, multiple departments, parks, obviously engineering and emergency management. So this is, we've been working really hard on this goal, even before the comp plan came out, achieving MS4 stormwater compliance. And I think we've been doing a really good job. So engineering department, designing, developing the bioretention basin conversion. So there's conversations with actually some organizations outside of the city to help not just design them, but then maintain them, because it's a lot more difficult than just mowing a basin or just having concrete there. So we do need a lot of hands on deck for those, otherwise they'll get overgrown and they'll not serve their purpose. We're really pushing hard on SWIP requirements for new construction, including grading permits, which is a huge shock to a lot of our developers, especially for the smaller lots. They never had to do it before, so now it's like, why are we doing this? Because it's part of DNR's requirements, and we're gonna follow that rule. And then we have a SWIP portal for reporting, so when they do their inspections, they can self-report. We also have a new dedicated employee that does those inspections, so they can't just pretend that they're, maintaining, because she's out there and she's definitely letting them know that they're not adhering to those expectations. The city facility SWIPs and review inspections for Public Works and Parks Departments, so not just our contractors out there, but also us internally, that we're keeping up with that as well. Definitely a lot of updates to the city website, and then staff training. We updated the stormwater code, which y'all were here for last May. And then Parks Department, if you're not familiar, they have a new infiltration trench, a couple of them, but one is gonna have some signage out there to explain to the public what this is. That one, sad to me, but I'm sure the Parks Department doesn't mind. It's just one of those fill and mow kind of situations. There's not a whole lot of planting there, but then the signage explains what's happening under the ground. It's not just, water running on the top, but it's actually filtering through and going through different stages before we let it daylight out into the river. And then the planning department, which is me, because I love education, is the stormwater awareness campaign through social media platform. There's a WaterWise Wednesday post every Wednesday about stormwater. We recently finished the storm drain murals at Washington High School as a pilot program, so hopefully we can expand that throughout the city. We just have to sit down and talk about the parameters for that. And then we just had our Earth Day event with rain barrel demonstrations and the Enviroscape, which is, again, a stormwater demonstration that kids interact with. And then we created a stormwater survey, and I try to push that out as much as I can, but not a lot of people are interested in doing a survey about stormwater. I don't blame them. That's not as much fun.
Well, I do say, though, the social media's education and stuff like that, I mean, the people in our area really are getting, picking up pieces from that information and
That's
stuff like
great.
that.
Yeah, I do hear people talking, everyone, I saw that post about, like the leaves in the storm drain, or, about just
So
the
we
rain
had-
gardens. They love the rain
Yeah,
gardens.
and it's
so.
like, you have somebody sitting there cleaning their lawnmower over the drain
Yeah,
and those kind of things and stuff, and somebody will remind them,
that's
you're not-
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So-
That
Better
makes me
coming from a
happy.
neighbor than it would be from the mayor.
No, it's good information that's definitely helping.
Thank you. And then we have just the goal of expanding recreational programs. So again, this is just something that's wrapped up in that Parks Master Plan that we don't really have all that to share with you right now. So it's just they're reviewing that, and that will come out in the next month. And then emergency management, periodically review and update the city emergency management and hazard mitigation plan to deal with those natural disasters that we
we deal with the flooding more than anything. So they have worksheets that they've completed, submitted to East West Gateway, and they review and edit those in a 5-year cycle. What that looks like, I don't know, you'd have to ask Justin. So this is the information he gave me for that. And then our last goal for this, our last strategy, or no, it's not our last, but one of our last ones, is encourage pervious surface coverage, green infrastructure, robust landscaping in commercial and residential districts to provide the shade and address stormwater runoff. So as you can see, these are some of the things that we've been trying to put out there: the Earth Day event, the infiltration trench, the Citizens Guide goes out once a year in the water mailing, although not everyone gets a water bill now, so I'm gonna push this year that it's more online, more digital, because I don't get a water bill and I don't get all of these wonderful flyers, and currently right now they're not in a digital format, so we're gonna work on that. And then the Water Wise Wednesday posts that go out every Wednesday. And then the last one is the work with the Urban Forestry Council to plan for ecosystem health along the rivers and creeks. And as you all know, our riverfront is pretty scary right now with some of the slough that's been going on. And so we have trees. I've created this map showing where there's currently trees and then where they're proposing to plant new trees. So the ones that they're proposing, you can see, are called out. There's quite a few that they want to add to kind of stabilize those banks. So that's a project that's currently in works. So.
Does the Parks Department oversee that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I just created the map. They just told me what they wanted to put there.
Yeah,
So.
good trees. Those are
Yeah.
good trees.
I just,
They're,
you know,
they're native.
yeah.
And that is good, you know, none of these frou-frou. Well, you know.
What, I don't know what a frou-frou tree
Gonna put that
is.
in Missouri,
those,
right?
you know,
Truffle leaf trees? Yeah. No, they're good trees. They
Can the
really-
Missourian quote you on that?
Yes,
Carolyn?
absolutely. The frou-frou trees we don't want.
Yeah.
These are all good.
No. All right, and then here is our final goal, governmental progress.
Our final one here, 7.1, develop a new fiscal plan for the funding and implementation of comprehensive plan goals. So obviously, there are a lot of goals outlined in our comprehensive plan, as you guys know. And so how are we going to fund some of these projects? Well, obviously, we have the TIF district that we're looking to possibly create along Fifth Street, and then you saw the corridors that we've outlined in the map. The transportation sales tax, which would cover some of our transportation-related projects that we talked about previously. And then the capital improvement sales tax. You know, they will be meeting, they have their committee members, and they will be hearing recommendations and input from individuals on some projects that they would like to see throughout the community. And so those will be taken up with the capital improvement sales tax.
And I think it's imperative that this commission get behind this and be supportive of these, because that's why Washington is what Washington
Absolutely.
is.
And I think you need to be very conscious of taxpayers want to know, why do you want this money? And we have lots to point at to say, this is what we've done. We told you we'd build the library, the pool, the public safety building. I mean, we have a really good record. And when we do it right. So I mean, you know, you have to remember, you've really got to push that it's not just what we're looking for the future, but you can look at us and know we're trustworthy and we're going to provide what you need.
We've delivered on everything we've promised, right?
Right.
Beg your pardon?
We've delivered on everything we've
Oh,
promised.
Absolutely, and that, you cannot say that about government. But here you can, and that is so great.
Yeah, that's why I think, I mean, the update's been really good, and obviously there's so much that goes into this, like truly developing this plan. But if we can get this, like all these pages into some visual, like a one-pager kind of thing, right? To post to social medias, to promote locally, that will, I think, go a long way.
Because we have a very alert and intelligent voter base. These guys, for
Yeah.
the most part, really know they know.
You have to really give it to
Hard-headed
them,
Germans, boy, they don't
understand.
waste their money.
Right.
You know, and if you can show them This is good. That's a great idea.
Darren made a presentation at the Mayor's Coffee last month that was really, really good,
Excellent.
and explained the rationale behind the transportation, especially of, you know, how it's 3 to 4 years. that
Oh,
we
you've
have
got to be,
commit
you've got
this,
to be
so-
invested early.
And that was a good,
You have to have a dedicated funding source.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's gonna provide it.
Well, and I'll tell you, our sales tax is what kept us alive during COVID, and,
Yeah.
you know, we are a destination.
well, Sarah and Aaron, thank you. That was an awesome
great.
update. That
Well, again,
was-
thank you for your vested interest.
I was looking for out of this, so, very good.
Glad you guys stayed awake through all that. We were a little worried that it was long, so, but thank you for participating and giving us some feedback. We really did spend a lot of time on that, getting the department heads to give us some of their pieces, because we don't know everything, what's going on, so.
Well, just let the department heads know that we appreciate their, you know, staying on top of it and stuff too, because
Yeah,
We'll be asking for an update in a year.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Mark your calendar.
Good, yeah.
Okay, anything else on the comp plan? All right, let's move on to number 8. Code changes, appeals to the Board of Adjustment, C1, C2 overlay, and C3 zoning district code change recommendations.
Okay, so the first one's quite simple, but may have a problem like I was having before. Let's see here. I don't know. Hold on. I don't know why the PDFs are not showing, so I'm gonna close everything. Still not showing. So we're looking at the Board of Adjustments. We've had quite a few variance applications come through, and one in particular, which I won't get into, was approved, and Darren and I were here, and we kind of talked about it, and we said, we really need to have a city attorney here to argue what is a hardship and what is not a hardship when it comes to these appeals. It was granted, we didn't think it was a hardship, so we looked at mainly how much we charge to cover the cost for having the city attorney. And we looked at our rate that we pay, we looked at how much we charge, or how much we have to pay to send letters out, we have to post in the Missourian, and all of those things. So like we've been charging only $60, and I've looked at other entities, like New Haven and Union and Wildwood, and they're all charging different rates, but $60 is a steal. So I think it's time that we increase our fee to the $300, which is kind of in the middle. Some of them were as high as $750, but the lowest I saw was $250. So that being said, we're just asking for that fee change. The process is not going to change, except that we are going to ask our city attorney to be in attendance so that when that conversation comes up about it being a hardship, and why they can't meet the requirements of the code, he can have a better argument for that. So this is the first one that I'm asking you guys to approve for a code change on our fees. And surprisingly, in my research, we're the only ones that actually put the fee in the code. So other entities do not put the fee in the code, and I had to pull their applications offline to find out what their fee is.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which means they may change.
They can just change it. Well,
That's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Transparency here in Washington.
Exactly.
Yeah, for real.
Guys, we were going in the hole when someone would request a variance, and that's not right.
No, no.
That means our taxpayers are footing the bill for an individual's request. That's not right.
Agreed.
Do you need a
I
is there any
think it's a
discussion?
great idea. I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I will motion that we increase the fees as stated.
Second.
Motion Motion made by Carolyn, seconded by Rocco, that we increase the fees from $60 to $300 for the appeals to the Board of Adjustments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay.
Very good.
And then, and unfortunately, I can't project this, but I'll figure out why, but not right now. But you should have in your packet is the matrix for our permitted uses. And thankfully, I went through and highlighted everything so you can see what I was focused on. So it kind of came to our attention that we have a C2 overlay district, which is that Fifth Street corridor, but it doesn't have its own column. It actually is considered part of the C2. And if you look at all the permitted uses or even the special use, you could get a special use permit for some of the uses, like if it, like a drive-through, right? If you need a special use permit to have the drive-through because it's, not a 5-car stack, then they could do that in the C2 overlay as well as the C2. So looking at that, I thought, well, we should address this, one, because we're trying to revitalize Fifth Street into a walkable, pedestrian-friendly type of environment, and if it's in the same category as C2, well, you're thinking of your 147 corridor that allows for huge parking lots and lots of cars. Do we want that same type of use in C2 overlay? So we're not making any changes right now. I don't have an ordinance or anything, to send to council, but I wanted to bring that to your attention and have you guys look at some of the suggestions that I'm making for the C2 overlay. And when I looked at C3 while I was going through it, I thought, well, this is pretty much the same thing. C3 is our downtown core district, and that's what we want to do, is expand that downtown to include Jefferson and Fifth Street. So why not make those almost one and the same?
Yeah.
So the first thing I looked at was the dwellings, the single-family attached, which I wrote a P and I highlighted that. So we have, a lot of residential in our C3, and to say that we don't allow single-family attached, but we allow multifamily, I was kind of confused as why we wouldn't allow, like, like our townhomes kind of thing. So we do have some PDRs with those. Why don't we just expand that to our C3 and our C2 overlay? So that was my first suggestion there, to add that. But then we go further in, and there's a lot that I thought, well, let's start taking out some of this stuff. So we're looking at the automobile and other motor vehicle repair, service, and body shops. Currently, right now, it's permitted with an asterisk, which means in the code, it says, you're permitted as long as you're not, you gotta get a special use permit if you're within 50 feet of a residential district. I would think that all those types of uses should be a special use permit. They should come to us, no matter where they are, in proximity to residential, that it should go through that special use permit. So that's what the S stands for there. And then I was looking at the automobile and truck rental services. So you're kind of thinking of the U-Haul over there on Fifth Street. Do we want to see a bunch of U-Haul vehicles on Fifth Street or downtown? So I took that out as, let's get rid of that one. The automobile tire parts and accessories and supplies, retail or repair. Again, we have some of those uses. They're not, too overwhelming or overbearing, but I still think they should go through a special use permit process if we're gonna add some more of those to our C2 overlay district in downtown. Automobile wash and detailing services, our club car wash, is that what we want? So I put a big X through that, like, I don't even want to see that in C1. C1 is neighborhood commercial. I mean, do we want car wash in a neighborhood? So those are places, there are uses that you would see further on 100. And even our East Fifth Street where we have club car wash, that's an issue. And they were approved, and now the neighbors are, up in arms because they can't get into their neighborhood because it blocks the street.
So
So these
Sarah, on that though, real quick, I mean, when you're talking about automobile wash and detail services,
Yeah.
I mean, if a guy has a business, that's all he does is one or two vehicles, is that still that type of business then and stuff too, or is, what type of permit would he have?
So are you talking about the one that he travels and he goes to?
No, I'm talking about, we were just talking about MacArthur. Okay, across the street is that, Obermark Commodities or whatever it is, and then right next to that used to be plumbing. But now there's a guy in there that, in there, he does car wash and detailing and stuff. So it's like, you bring the car there and he does wash and detailing and stuff. That's what I'm referring to, is what type of business.
So, I mean, we could write it in the code where it's limited to, but if we allow it, it could grow into a bigger business.
Well, I know, I'm just, that's what I'm pointing out. I mean, he's got one vehicle or maybe another one parked that he's gonna be doing later, or two vehicles parked or something like that.
Right.
It's gonna be about it. But it's,
Isn't there one of the old Dixon Motor up there where it's the glass company in the front, and I think on the bays on the side, I think he does.
I think he does
there.
there and stuff
Where he pulls
also.
them actually in the bays, and I mean, it's
Right.
not like
Exactly, it's not like.
fit in that area. I mean,
Right,
it
but-
fits well in there because he's not a
Right,
large
but
business.
it's doing the same thing. He's doing an automotive wash and detailing a vehicle.
So-
It's a whole different, it's
What-
a whole different amount of work and process that he's doing compared to a club car wash.
Right, so maybe we could just say, like, again, we can reword it as a detailing service, and we could just say limited to, X number of cars or something, but then you would have to continuously make sure and monitor that, and make sure it doesn't expand into something bigger, because we've allowed it, and then they start their small business.
But if you only allow so many vehicles, and it's, again, would be probably complaint driven by, now all of a sudden, he's got 10 cars out there.
Yeah.
And the neighbor's complaining about, it's like, well, then you could shut him down because, you're only gonna allow, 3 or 4 vehicles at the very most, or 2 or 3 or whatever it is and stuff like that, I think you could still define
You
something there.
require a special use permit though? I mean, if we could do it that way too.
Yeah,
where
it'd
you
be a
could
lot
require-
easier to revoke the special use permit
Yeah.
Right.
than to just shut them down.
That way, if they have to come before
Right.
us and explain what they're doing, we'll know the property, whether it
Yeah,
fits in.
but,
and,
but
somebody doing it.
instead of not completely allow it altogether, but use a special use permit, allow up to, say, 3 vehicles or whatever and stuff like that on premises or something,
And it's a hand wash type of
Yeah.
facility as opposed to a machine.
Automated-
Yeah, you're putting,
an
sending
automated-
cars through the machine.
Right,
yeah.
an automated car wash system.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that, and all these uses that are currently in use, they would just be legally non-conforming, then we wouldn't have.
Well, true, I understand that. It's
Yes.
just, but I'd hate to now limit somebody that's gonna use the back of somebody else's building, and now he can't do it because all else I'm gonna do is wash some cars and stuff, it's,
Yeah.
it's,
And that's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, this is all a discussion right now, and,
But yeah,
come up with-
that's what I'm just thinking of, is something like that.
so,
That goes back to the automobile and truck rental place too. There's that one on Fifth Street, just west of, the U-Haul trucks, that's very nicely done.
The roundabout?
drive around town.
Yeah, roundabout.
Roundabout?
Round and about, or something like that. I forget the exact name.
It's the old DX station or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, so, but are those, I thought those were like a taxi service.
Yeah.
More
Or
taxi.
weren't they more of a taxi than a?
I'm not
rental?
sure.
It's a taxi service.
Is it?
Yeah,
It's
and
an app.
and senior, a lot of senior.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
seniors use that
of that.
service. Yeah.
But I do think the idea of maybe shifting it, obviously from where it is now, where it's permissible, to special use permit just for now, and then maybe if we really want to nix all of it, they can be grandfathered in, those 2 specific businesses, but then we make sure it doesn't continue to expand.
And I think when you're looking at these codes, it's the vision of what you see for that Fifth Street corridor.
Right.
Do you want to see more, even though they're smaller uses, like they're not like Club Car Wash, but they are still, you're looking at cars getting worked on, getting sold, getting rented. I mean, just
Well-
looking on all these cars, is that when we go to redevelop, are we redeveloping it and then allowing the same use? Or are we saying now we can build something else here instead, once that business leaves?
There's that, I don't remember, Henry's or somebody that's out on West Fifth, and it's right across from, it's next to the martial arts thing. And I mean, those really leak into the street. He does car.
Yeah.
And that's an odd spot. I don't know, I was not on here when he started, but, is anybody familiar with that? He always has a
West Fifth Street?
VW that's always sitting out there, and I
Oh,
mean, and it kind
yeah,
of bleeds out into Fifth Street. They're really jammed in there. And I've often thought that's a kind of an odd spot.
Scobie Plumbing is right next to them.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they share the building.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Change-
definitely. things
Change will
to
take
think
some
about.
time, but I think it
Right,
makes
yeah,
sense,
to
though.
think about what do we want to see overall,
Yeah.
you know?
So there's a few more. The drive-throughs and the drive-ins, whether it's a 5-car stack or whether it's not and requires a special use permit. I just put in there that we should, you know, the drive-ins and the drive-throughs on Fifth Street, that's just a lot of cars in and out in that area, downtown, C3. We had the old US Bank drive-through, and the new owners of that wanted to continue doing a drive-through for their, you know, their new use, and I'm like, no, this is not gonna work, because they wanted to kind of loop around and then go in front of the US Bank to get their coffee delivered, and I'm just imagining just the chaos of the cars trying to like get through that.
There was
Yeah.
no room for
Yeah, there's no room for that, just to say outright, no, we're not doing any drive-throughs whatsoever. This is not what our downtown walkable district is for. It's not for drive-through, you can walk up and get what you need, park somewhere, hopefully in a parking garage one day, but make it.
And
make
spend the
it-
whole day shopping and then
Yes,
come and leave.
yes, get your steps in. So, that, I cross those out as things, but again, if you feel like we have to accommodate a little bit there, you know, we still have the special use permit for that. And then, just like the drive-throughs, the gasoline stations, you know, think of Fisher's, and I know it's probably a staple here in Washington, but that scares me. That in and out in all different directions. I mean, I get my gas there, and I like getting my gas because it's by my house, so I don't have to go very far. But going in and out of that with the traffic on Elm and on Fifth, and everybody's, you know, I just think one day there's going to be an accident. It's very tight, and you need a lot more space to accommodate all the activity that happens at a gas
The
station.
BP there on 47 and Fifth Street is no better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're sitting there, coming out of there trying to get, whether you're gonna be turning left or turning right or going straight, and you're coming in and out, and it's like, that's no better there and stuff, you know?
Right, yes. So if we're trying to encourage people to bike and to walk, do we make it more hazardous for them to do that?
Right,
You know, so.
right.
So gas stations, talked about the drive-throughs. Again, restaurants that are drive-in restaurants like our Sonic, that could be busier. You know, that restaurant, I don't see a lot of people coming and going, but if we have a really popular restaurant and we allow it and their cars just constantly in and out getting their food, I don't know. I think that we can have restaurants and you can park, but that constant circulation of cars, like think of Hardee's, you know, and things like that.
Well, if you had a Panera or Breadco or something right in there and stuff too, I mean, you'd be the same thing, because they would have a drive-through and stuff, and it's just not very conducive for.
Or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, any of those small things that you still have a drive-through, you're still gonna be creating that problem doing that.
Right.
Sarah, what's the asterisk on the P?
It means that there are stipulations that, it's usually if it butts up to residential, then they have certain requirements that they have to meet if they're butt up to residential.
But it's still permitted without
It's
a
permitted.
special use permit.
Yeah, just permitted, but if I think it's 50 feet of residential, they have to get a special use permit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the asterisk says.
Gotcha.
and just because of the added noise and activity. I mean, like, you're thinking, I'm thinking of Rothschild. I mean, it's a restaurant, you drive in, you park. It's not constant movement of cars that is creating a hazard for people that are walking or trying to get to that restaurant. It's a very static, you know, you've got a parking lot there. So it's a little bit of a
Well-
different type of use, and, I think danger is.
Yeah, I'd argue a little bit the way that parking lot is, since you come in and park there, and then you're backing out
Yeah.
right across people walking across and the traffic and everything else and
We
stuff too.
historically have had a lot of the curb cuts all the way, you know, the whole property, so they can just back out onto Fifth Street. Yeah, that was bad design in the past, and I know we've changed that. We don't allow that anymore, but hopefully redevelopment will come back to a safer type of, you know, driving in and not being able to just back out onto the street. Would have a, yeah, kind of like
Nice.
our pharmacy. Can't think of the name of it right now.
Schrader's.
Schrader's, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
On Fifth Street, there's,
Ma'am, would you come up to the microphone, please, and state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, pull the mic
Pull the
down.
mic down, pull the mic down towards you. There you go, now we can hear you.
Becky Meyer, I live on Coke Cattle Drive. The nursing home on Fifth Street across from the Tilted Skillet,
Cedar Crest.
yes, I understand that that's been, I'm a new resident of Washington, I just moved here last summer, but I was told that it's been closed for years. I
I
mean,
think
that's.
COVID, am I correct?
Yeah.
Cedar
Close it
Crest.
down?
And,
It's closed. 5 years.
Yeah.
and that's a prime area right there on Fifth Street, and we like the Tilted Skillet, but, you know, getting in and out of there, parking is
Yeah,
scary.
yeah.
But
They're
I just
limited.
wondered about that.
So there is a new owner of that, and so there is plans for changes there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we just don't, we haven't come to that point yet, we're saying what's gonna happen.
Okay.
So I don't wanna speak out of turn, but yeah, it has been bought.
Oh, good. All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So I think that is pretty much the extent of where I felt like, you know, first of all, C2 overlay needs its own identity and not necessarily just, oh, I'm just part of C2. And that we move towards a more vibrant, less car-centric kind of feel for that corridor. So I left a lot, I'm sorry, I missed a couple. Storage and warehousing of household goods. I can't think of an example, well, I can think of the storage units over here on Third, that they definitely need to be gone. But I can't think of any other use that is like not so alarming. I mean, that is just the ugliest thing in downtown. I'm sorry if anyone here knows the owners, but it's just not attractive. You shouldn't put that in a downtown core. It used to be a car wash.
Herb Dill.
Yeah.
No, it was Roger Langendorf.
Okay. Oh, it was Rogers.
Yeah, he had a car
Oh.
wash.
Okay. Yeah, so that was something I think the mayor came to me about that, so getting rid of that.
Hillary is.
And then the taxi, okay, so the taxi, we were talking about the roundabout town, garaging and maintenance. I'm not sure if that's exactly the same uses that we're talking about, but making that a special use permit. To say, you know, let's look at it and see how intensive this use will be before we just willy-nilly say, yeah, just go ahead.
A good selection for what they had, the garage, the filling station, parking, and she's really good, it doesn't encroach onto the road at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Yeah, and,
Future development, is that something we want to continue?
No, right, right.
right.
10 years down the road, if that's not there anymore, we want somebody
I
else
mean,
to go in there.
and that was an auto-centric, that was the main thoroughfare. I mean, you're gonna have all those uses there because,
More filling stations
yeah,
along there too.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
But we're growing up and the cars are moving to 100 and we need to have people on the ground and people biking and feeling comfortable that they're gonna be able to get through our new downtown expansion without you know, losing their lives. That'd be great.
Yeah, sometime.
Sarah,
So, yep,
so in your letter, you talk about establishing front build-to-line in place of setbacks, but then your next part is require cross-lot access between parcels. So
Yeah.
you're trying to say just connect, if somebody's got a parking lot in the front or the back and stuff, or I'm assuming that's kind of what you're meaning is
Right.
to, so that you have fewer, again, as you're talking about, cuts into the curb so that you're coming through and you can access these different places.
so you're imagining the storefronts are the only thing that you see, and all the cars are behind. And so that there's really only a couple ways to get in and out. It's not like every lot's gonna have an entrance or an exit.
Sort of like downtown with the Main Street. You sit there and you're parking on the backside of,
Right,
with very little parking right on the street in the front kind of thing.
exactly like that, yeah.
Okay.
So that front build-to line, where would that be if we didn't have setbacks
So that would be the property line.
at the street?
Mm-hmm.
Then we need to make sure that at the intersections, we have that
Right,
45.
just like in the C3, we have that
Right.
already, so we make those,
Making sure that we keep that, because that line of sight is very important.
yes. Agreed. It's a whole other code change, though. Our C2 overlay, we don't, we have the setback, the 25 feet, so.
Okay.
And a part of this too, would you require sidewalks on one side, both
A
sides?
new
or-
development,
Yeah, on the new development.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
would be the goal. I don't want anyone having to walk in the street.
I think Fifth Street's
Yeah,
sidewalk.
I think
both
we're pretty much
sides,
covered for Fifth Street.
Everywhere from 47
Is it?
to High
Yeah.
Street. I think
No,
it
it
is.
goes all the way to Grand.
Grand, I think,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Grand.
That's good.
Okay. I don't walk Fifth Street.
Maybe one
I spend a
small
lot of
section.
time on Fifth Street.
Well,
I run up and down Fifth Street, you know, sidewalks aren't
there's-
great, but they're there,
Yeah,
so.
it's that gas station.
Past 47.
Like the sidewalks on Third Street now.
Yes.
It's on the right hand, it's on the
it's on the
north
right-hand
side.
Right.
We
But
go
not
down
the
there.
south.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it stops at
Weber
Lewis.
Farms. So it's like
Yeah, yeah.
Wealth management.
we go to
One thing about Fifth Street, it has a little of anything and a lot of everything.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
So it'll be a challenge.
It will be. Yes, we hope this Fifth Street corridor study that
That's what-
UGAB is doing will really shed some light on some things that we can be proactive
That's
to
right.
make those changes faster,
I agree.
so. So again, I don't have anything to take to council, we don't have an ordinance or anything, I just really wanted y'all to kind of put in your head what you see for the Fifth Street corridor, you know, it's already part of the comprehensive plan, we are already working towards it, but if we allow certain uses to proliferate, then what's the point? You know, and like I said before, we had a variance request for something that was against the plan, even, and obviously against code, and it was allowed, so we're really looking to just kind of get harder on what we want there, what we don't want there. So, we can come back, and just finalize our preferences and make a move for that. So,
Makes sense.
any other questions or
I
concerns?
think that's a great concept.
Yes.
Agreed.
It
It's
takes care
needed.
of future problems.
And I
Yeah.
would rather be on the front end of it.
Correct.
Instead of reacting to the
Yes.
study, let's think about in conjunction with the study, but also, we know we're gonna have to make these changes, so
Yeah.
let's go ahead and make them.
Can I say something, you guys? I know it's late and we're all tired. I grew up on Fifth Street, 200 East Fifth Street, catty corner of the old Dixon Motor Company. I remember as a kid, we had a front porch with a swing out. People would walk by. Yeah, Highway 100 was Fifth Street back then, but there were sidewalks on both sides, and this was, maybe it was, you know, maybe I'm old, I don't know. people would walk by and they would stop and talk to my parents and my grandparents. And I think if we do things right by bringing housing back, by bringing good businesses back, by having our codes right, which they weren't back then, which is why we lost so many wonderful houses on Fifth Street for burger chefs. Good God. Anyway, that's why we moved. We moved out to Dina Road when Burger Chef went in, because it's so noisy. Traffic was increased. It was dangerous. Little kids, and the people stopped walking down on Fifth Street. And by God, I want that back for my grandkids and my kids, and I would hope everybody in town would like that too. So that's why we're doing Fifth Street.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, anything else?
Do you want more?
No?
Okay. Then no.
Thank you. This, I think, is the longest meeting we've had for a long time. That's-
yes.
I mean, it was a ton of information, so much was,
It
we're
wasn't,
heading in the
it
right
wasn't a lot of
direction.
argument.
The Amoco isn't closed.
So, if nothing else,
A motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Trotman took